Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Sports Frenzy podcast. Phil Penarski here, joined as always with our News 8 sports correspondents, Dean Holsworth and Andy McDonald. Thank you both so much for joining us once again. Everybody hopefully had a great weekend. You know, we had a lot of sports action going on that we'll be talking about all day today. Of course, we've got the Lions to get through. They're back in the winning column. We'll also be taking a look at the college football playoff. The top 12 teams are now slated. We'll look at the matchups and possibly even pick our winners there. We'll also get to Ferris State coming up in just a bit as they are set in the Division II semifinals, looking to win another national championship. But let's start with a little bit more positive. You know, we seem to really be ebbing and flowing with this show. Sometimes we're really negative at the beginning. Sometimes we're really positive. So let's stay positive as long as we can in today's episode. And let's start with the Grand Rapids Griffins, who are probably the hottest team, not just in all of hockey, both levels, but probably in all of sports right now. Through 21 games, just so everybody can kind of imagine this, through 21 games that they've played right now, they have won 19 games, and they have one loss and then one shootout loss. The next best team in all of the AHL right now with the least amount of losses is 5. So they are head and shoulders above almost every single team right now playing. Guys, we've talked about it, probably not as much as we should have, but the Griffins, just an incredible story right now. And again, just kind of following pace with all the other winning we've seen from these minor league teams here in Michigan.
Yeah, it's truly been unbelievable so far what they've been able to do. I mean, some of the additions that they added, some of them were actually from their NHL roster, and Gustafson and Bretton Hall. So those two both were additions to the Red Wings last year that were supposed to maybe be better if their NHL team didn't work out. They cleared waivers. They're down here. So in a way, they're essentially their top line of defense is 2 NHL players playing defense for them. So that's definitely helping them along the way. And then John Leonard, who they signed, just keeps scoring every single time you look at a box score for the Griffins. It seems like he puts in another goal. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun to follow. They play the Milwaukee Admirals on Wednesday this week, and that's a game that if you can get out to, you should, because the Admirals are a pretty good team in the AHL too. So it's just like, it's crazy, because if you're the Griffins right now, it's gonna be for Dan Watson, probably gonna be a little bit difficult of a job to keep these guys like focused at some point, because when you get this many wins, it's like you're already almost in the playoffs, like with how many wins they have. So it's been really, really impressive, and you just keep waiting for it to end, but it hasn't. Like, the reality just hasn't hit, and keep it going.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the most impressive things to me is I looked at kind of they've outscored their opponents 84-39 so far this year.
That's insane.
All right, including 40, 44, and 22 on the road. So they're doing it, with decisive wins. All right, large wins. I think Andy, 10-1. It was one game a few weeks ago. So they're really piling on the goals. Obviously, they lead the league in goals in just every single category you can think of. Phil, now we're talking about Dominic Shine scored a goal the other day in his 500th game as a Griffin, which is kind of crazy to think about, that he's been around that long, been able to do what he's been doing. So yeah, kind of like the Whitecaps, franchise records all the way through. Griffins are doing the same thing.
Yeah. No, again, it's great to see. And again, just kind of keeping it going, because that was one thing I was kind of worried about, was once the Whitecaps kind of finished their historic season, what were we going to be kind of looking forward to and watching here in West Michigan? And the Griffins have provided that in their 30th season. I mean, you just can't ask for much more. And like you guys were kind of saying, I mean, they're dominating right now. That 84-39 goal differential right now, that's insane to even think about. And again, it just really goes to show that there is sports action going on right now. And if you are looking for something fun to do, why not head over to Van Andel Arena and check out the Griffins? They are putting on quite the show on the ice right now.
It's been a lot of fun, that's for sure. Yeah. Can't deny that. And also, let's remind people, last year this team ended the season on this losing skid where they were nothing. So it's a lot of credit to Dan Watson, what he's been able to do with that team, and Dominic Shine, who we mentioned, he's taken over as the captain of that team. He's been able to do a lot of great things too. So they're a lot of fun to watch right now, and it's all these players will eventually probably make their way to the Red Wings with the way their organization runs. So it's cool to get an eye on them right now when they're playing with this much success.
Yeah, no, that's something to also look forward to, is that these guys are probably eventually going to be heading up and going to the Detroit Red Wings, helping them out a little bit more too. So again, just kind of continuing on those winning ways there. Shifting gears though a little bit, obviously the winter meetings are happening right now in Florida for Major League Baseball. I know the World Series seems like it was just a couple weeks ago, but again, we got to always look forward to the next season. And Scott Harris, Ferris with the Detroit Tigers made a couple of comments at the winter meetings that have obviously gotten a lot of attention from fans here in Michigan. One being that he said that there are no untouchable players, or that he doesn't believe in untouchable players right now. And of course, that kind of swells into the ongoing contract worries around Tarek Skubal, because he has not signed an extension with the Tigers yet. He's only got 1 year left on that deal. What do you guys make of not only the comments that Scott Harris made, but also maybe some of the comments that fans are making based off what he said in those winter meetings?
I mean, I don't know. Like if you look at it, like I understand what he's kind of saying. Like, hey, we're willing to listen to any offers that are on the table. But also, I think it's like kind of a slap in the face to Tarek, because he's kind of saying like, hey, we're probably gonna trade you, kind of thing, right? And it just seems like no one's safe as far as Tigers go. And if you're a Tiger, like, do you really have faith in your organization? Like when they say like, hey, any one of you could be traded at some point, right? That's what he's saying, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know. It was interesting comments, and I know he kind of backpedaled a little bit as what he was saying. Like, we want Tarek Skubal here. We want him to help us win next year. But, no, I just see this as, like, just lining up to, for him to be traded maybe before the or in the offseason.
I think he's just trying to leave the possibility open. I think that if they're not going to sign him long term, like at the end of the day, Scott Harris is probably one of the people that you'd hope that knows what he's going to do with this roster going forward in the future. Yeah. If he thinks that as long as this guy is on the team, there's not a for sure shot that he's going to get traded this year. They're not going to act like he's not completely a part of the future. So for me, it's like you do want to he's saying that he's listening to offers because. Well, he kind of has to if he's going to trade him. Yeah. And in the long term, if they're not going to sign Tarek Skubal, you'd probably want him to trade him this offseason so they get the most for him. Because if they wait till the deadline, we know what happened with like Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander back when they got dealt at those. They got absolutely nothing for it. Obviously, a GM that probably didn't do as well with talent as Scott Harris has proved to do so far with our minor league system right now in Detroit. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's one of those things where it does suck to. I guess a lot of people just want Tarek. He's become such a huge piece here, so you'd want your GM to come out and say he's untouchable. He's going to be our guy no matter what. But at the end of the day, maybe that's just not the direction he wants to go with it. And I guess at least he's being honest about it.
Yeah, no. I feel like fans are kind of what you just said, Andy. They don't want to say goodbye to Tarek. But again, I think if you're looking at this from a team standpoint, if you can get a pretty big haul for him this offseason, I mean, why wouldn't you?
Exactly.
Especially with the question of does he even want to be a Detroit Tiger for the long term? Again, I know he has said the same thing, but it's sort of athlete speak or front office speak. That's what they're supposed to be saying. So again, I feel like Tigers fans should maybe take a step back and kind of look at it big picture wise. For the future. I mean, if you can get a pretty good deal, a lot of additional prospects. We've already seen what sort of the farm system for the Tigers can already do. I mean, that could also lead into some other good news for the Tigers as well.
I think that is all true. Like you definitely would want to get a big haul for it. I think the difference with Tarek is because of how good he is right now. You would definitely want at least a couple major league players back because it's not like if you're the Tigers, you don't want to take a step back and be worse next year if you lose this guy. So I think that at the end of the day, for the fans at least, it's only going to get a clear answer when the trade actually happens or it doesn't happen or they sign him, one of the two. Because if they don't, it's always going to be about what they get back. If they don't get anything back, if they get a bunch of minor league names and a couple draft picks, people are going to be like, "Are you kidding me right now?" Yeah. Because that's obviously making them worse unless they go out in free agency after that, and maybe sign a couple pitchers that obviously aren't to his caliber, but are 2-3s in a rotation, whatever it might be. I think that people are going to want a really, really, really good haul and it should be. I don't think they should trade him for anything unless it's a great haul that they get back from one of these teams that have more money to sign him in the future.
Yeah, his trading value couldn't be at its highest right now, right?
It's the best it's going to be.
I agree with Andy. Yeah, you got to get some of those pieces. You got to get some well-known names, who are going to help you in your lineup and help you in a rotation. Because you're not going to get any more from Tarek than you're going to get from him now.
I guess
for him now.
Question for both of you guys: if you were the GM in that chair, what would you want? Would you want to get back pieces for the future for this team, or would you rather have Tarek Skubal going forward with your organization? I mean,
me personally, I'd rather have Tarek Skubal just because there are so many unknowns with, the prospects or maybe some other guys that you might get in a trade. Maybe their talents don't translate to Comerica Park or something like that. I feel like you have a sure thing with Tarek. I mean, even if he does start to, decline a little bit in production, look at what he's doing right now. I feel like you would be crazy not to at least take that for the foreseeable future. But again, there are a lot more elements at stake with this.
Yeah.
Than just,
Yeah.
Hey, we want you here. Hey, I want to be here. Let's, shake hands and sign a deal.
Yeah, I agree with Phil. You have a dominant guy in your rotation for the next 8 to 10 years. Why not have him, right? Like we've talked about, like last year, it wasn't a guaranteed win every 4 or 5 days, but it was pretty darn close.
Right.
And so if you have that in your rotation, you're going to have a chance to make the playoffs every single year.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm in the camp if they can get him to sign to one of those deals where it's like 4 to maybe 6 years, I would be like completely on board with it, and I'd be good with that because it's not like I think the back end like 8 to 10, he's not going to be what he is right now, and I think you're kind of accepting that when you pay him that much money, which. The Tigers aren't a small market. No matter how much people want to make it seem like Detroit is, they can definitely pay more people than just him, even if they do sign him to a big deal. It's just about if Chris Ilitch wants to give up the money to do that, and obviously that's been a whole thing since he's been the GM here. But yeah, it's really hard to call, but I think right now with where the organization's at, the fan base is at, it'd be the best to do that, and then hopefully spend more money still on a couple other position players. But I don't know if they're capable of doing that, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, right. All right, well, let's stay in Detroit now and shift over to the football side of things and talk about the Detroit Lions. It seemed like the sky, at least from my perspective, the sky was falling last week after they lost to the Green Bay Packers on Thanksgiving Day, but they played again on Thursday against the Dallas Cowboys and, shook off a lot of rust. They scored 44 points, only gave up 30, a double-digit win for the Detroit Lions, a much better bounce back game, I think. Still a lot of work needed to be done as far as getting back to the playoffs or at least getting back into playoff contention this season. But guys, it's got to feel pretty good to, again, beat a team that was on a hot streak like the Cowboys were and do it in pretty convincing fashion. Yeah,
that was definitely a must-win. We kind of all talked about that a little bit, right? The one thing I liked was the offensive line play was really, really good, even with rookie Miles Frazier in there. Graham Glasgow was better. So, like, that offensive line obviously gave Jared Goff time to look downfield. And he hit J-Mo on a couple routes, St. Brown, Tesla on the end zone. So, like, I think the improved play of the offensive line was really key in that. And just the fact I think they got their confidence back a little bit. Obviously, going into LA this Sunday is going to be a tough task, but no, it's kind of good to see them bounce back. And obviously, with the Bears loss on Sunday to the Packers, that kind of helped the Lions inch a little bit closer, and knowing what they have to do now these last 4 games to make the playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt. It was an absolute must win. It was the bounce back you want to see. I think, again, kind of like you're hitting on right there, you just want to see consistency going forward now. Yeah. Like, you don't want to see, obviously, it's a very tough task to go out to LA and try to get this win right now. Yeah. I feel like the Panthers were the lucky team that had a win fall into their lap, somehow one of these weeks against the Rams. The Rams look unbeatable right now. But yeah, despite that, you got 3 games that are very winnable down the stretch, and you'd like to see them put it together and win all 3 of those in a row. I think at this point, if you're a Lions fan, you're probably cheering for the Packers because you're hoping that it comes down to that game. The most likely scenario for the Lions getting the playoffs at this point is to play the Bears in that last week for a playoff spot.
That's what I said a couple weeks ago. I knew it was going to come down to that.
And we didn't want it to come down to that. We talked about that. Like, we didn't want it to come down to that game, and it does scare me no matter. I mean, people are going to throw out these stats about, Jared Goff played good outside against Green Bay like 3 years ago. I think more times than not, he hasn't played as well outside. So it's going to be a tough game for them to win, I think, at that point, unless the Bears kind of completely fall apart. Some people are kind of predicting that right now, too. But, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of football left, and the Lions control their own destiny at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. But if they can go out and win this game against the Rams, I feel like we're going to be talking about them like they're the top of the league again. But then who knows? All year they've been so inconsistent for the last 2 months that you don't know what's going to happen the next week. Maybe they somehow lose 2 games to Minnesota this year. I don't know what it's going to be. I think we're going to find out exactly what we need to find out about this team and if it's good enough over the next 4 weeks, at least for the seasons going forward, regardless.
Right. No, and I think this is a great test to at least see, whether they win or lose against the Rams, this is going to be at least a test to see where they rank against some of the top NFC teams right now. So I think either way, we're going to learn a lot about this team this week. Before we get into a little bit more about that matchup, let's focus back onto the Cowboys for just a minute, because one thing we talked about a lot last week was bad offensive line play for the Lions and bad secondary play, bad defense. They weren't pressuring Jordan Love at all on Thanksgiving. They ended up with 5 sacks against Dak Prescott, and the offensive line for the Lions only gave up 1 sack against a pretty good, or at least improved Dallas front. So again, I mean, what are you guys most impressed with from just a week-to-week basis? Was it the fact that the defense kind of, buckled the chin strap a little bit more and was able to get after the quarterback, kind of pressured Dak a little bit more? Or was it that offensive line kind of stepping up and giving Jared Goff a little bit more time to throw?
I think for the whole team, this is arguably the most impressive one of the year, because it's not like it's about, in this league, it's about when you play a team, not like what their record is really. And Dallas was as hot as anybody in the league. They had won 3 in a row against 3 good teams. I think the fact they were even able to beat Dallas says a lot about the Lions. Like, they still are one of the teams that can't beat anybody on any given week. I guess the part that I was the most impressed about was the defensive line actually getting some pressure on the quarterback. And even though Aiden Hutchinson didn't have the sacks in this game, he did look a lot better. Like the pressure stat is a weird stat. I'm not a huge fan of it because sometimes it seems to be a little bit, more fake than it is real. But this game, it felt like he was actually making a difference and helping his other side of the defensive line get to the quarterback a few times. That was really good. But the linebacking play, I mean, Derek Barnes and Jack Campbell both had great games again in this one. Jack Campbell's having an all-pro season.
Yep. 12 tackles in that game, by the way.
Yeah, he's like all over it. So those two for me like impressed me a lot. And obviously the way that they ran the football, keep going to David Montgomery. Like, don't take it away from him. I think that he needs to be more involved in this offense because when he's out there running, it seems like no matter what their offensive line is doing, it feels like they're just so much different with the way those two run the ball. I think sometimes they overuse Jahmyr Gibbs and obviously you want to keep him on the field, but David Montgomery was a huge part of this team when they were winning. I think they should keep doing that. So just more balance overall on offense, it seemed like, and you like that. I think with the one thing about the Lions this year, they're probably going to have to outscore everybody they play the rest of the year. Because if we're talking about this being a good defensive performance for the Lions, they did give up 30 points the other day.
Maybe not great, but a better defensive showing, I will say.
And it felt good, though, right?
Yeah, right.
It's crazy that they gave up 30 points, and it still felt good. So I think we're
throwing
back
them
to
a
where we were
parade.
last year.
Yeah.
The last 4 games this year, they're going to have to outscore the opponent they play pretty much.
Right. Oh, definitely, yeah. And I already talked about the offensive line play. I think that was key. I think St. Brown toughing it out. Was a huge defining moment for the Lions, and I think that's St. Brown, right? He felt good enough. He made some key catches, especially the one that kind of sealed the game on third down there in the late in the fourth quarter. So yeah, I think they just kind of came together as a unit, got more balance, like Andy said. Obviously losing Brian Branch for the rest of the season is not good.
Yeah.
But they're good, and the secondary is going to have to play really well coming up against Puka and Stafford coming up on Sunday. So that's going to be one question mark for me going into the LA game.
Yeah, I think Matt Stafford wants to win this game. After a few against the Lions, have won his way.
I think he does.
Right. I think it's going to be
might be some motivation there.
Yeah, there might be a little bit after the past few times they played them. That's for sure.
Right. Well, and I think that was a game that we all kind of had scheduled when the schedule first came out. We kind of had it circled that this was going to be a big game.
Yeah.
Late in the season, the Rams were, going to be probably a top team in the NFC. We thought the Lions would be, and of course, it's the Matt Stafford and Detroit connection. So a lot of people are going to be very excited about this matchup. And of course, the Lions do need to win out, or at least stay as close as they can with Chicago and force that pivotal final game of the regular season in order to get to the playoffs at the very least. But it all begins with this Sunday against the Los Angeles Rams. How are they able to kind of knock off a very talented Rams team and, again, keep this momentum going throughout the rest of the regular season?
I think defensively, you have to find some way somehow to contain their wide receivers, and just their pass attack, right? I don't think they run the ball great. They have at times with Williams and Blake Corum. Blake Corum had a really good game this past week, but they were playing Arizona. So yeah, you really got to kind of lock down that really explosive offense a little bit, and and we got to continue to obviously get the ball in the hands of Gibbs and Montgomery, and just kind of do the things offensively they did against Dallas. For me, it comes down to, even if they lose this game, I expect the Bears to hopefully lose to the Packers, lose to San Francisco. So I think the Lions will still kind of be in the driver's seat here. So I'm not looking at this as a doom and gloom if they do lose, because LA is #1 seed, best record for a reason. But no, I do think if they do win this game, that's going to give Lions fans some renewed confidence that, hey, we can win the NFC this year.
Right.
So it's a big game either way, and no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, if the Lions win this game, I think they make the playoffs. As simple as that. Yeah. If they don't, though, I do agree with you. I think that they still have a chance. The Bears aren't going to win out against the teams they're playing against, most likely. So if they don't, then they'll still have a chance at the end of the year. That's a good thing. But for me, it's what we talked about last week again, because the one game you look at with the Panthers against Matt Stafford, he was under pressure all game, and it forced him into a couple interceptions and fumbles. Yep. I think that's going to be the biggest thing for me is turnovers. The way that the Lions kind of won this game against Dallas was they got turnovers. Against the hot offense, they were getting a couple of interceptions when they needed it. So I think that's going to be the difference for me. And then it's obviously if the offense capitalizing on those turnovers, because usually you get it in decent field position. After that, you can't just go 3 and out and punt the ball away against this Rams team, because they're going to score points. So, yeah, for me, it's forcing pressure on Matt Stafford and making him make decisions to where it causes turnovers. The Lions, I think, are going to have to get at least 3 of those to get a win in this game against such a good offense.
Should be a fun one. Again, that is in the late afternoon window on Sunday. Probably one of the better regular season games we've had, especially for this week. But and there are also a couple of pretty good games in that late window as well. You've got Green Bay and Denver taking on each other, and then you maybe have Phillip Rivers coming back from the dead and leading the Colts into Seattle for a win. You never know.
Why didn't they ask you, Dean? They could have called you up. I
mean, first of all, Phillip Rivers has 10 kids, so he has to make sure that he's getting some more money to pay for his kids, by the way.
Yeah, high school coaching isn't paying
work today. He's got 10 kids.
Right.
It's crazy.
College is super expensive these days.
Kids are expensive, I know.
Yeah,
or he's just trying to get out of the house. One of the two. Who knows which one it is? But yeah.
All right. Well, let's stick with football now, and of course, move to the collegiate level. Before we get to the college football playoff, we've got some Division II action that we have just got to talk about, namely being the Ferris State Bulldogs. They have had another incredible season. I mean, we know we've spent so much time over the years talking about how good Ferris State is, how they are able to just keep doing it, and even Ferris State getting some national love now with Trinidad Chambliss kind of leading Ole Miss to the college football playoff. So again, more and more people are focusing in on the Bulldogs, and it doesn't seem to be really affecting them. I believe they're on a 28-game winning streak right now. Again, they've made it into the semifinals of the Division II football playoffs. I want to go over the results leading up to the semifinal game. So in the first round, they took on Northwood. They won 65-14. Then a week later, they took on Ashland, the fourth seed in their group, and they won 56-24.
They're down 14-0 in that game, by the way.
Came back, and again, like we've said, they're just a machine right now on the football field. And then, of course, last week they won 52-29. Again, over 50 in all these playoff games. They're taking on Newberry this week. Again, we talked about just how cool it is to have these teams that are so good, kind of near where we are, and we get to cover them. But I think it's even more so important with Ferris State because, again, so many people, a lot of focus is on Michigan State. Western Michigan had a really good year. They won the MAC. And again, we should be focusing on Ferris State because they have a chance to win yet another national championship.
Yeah, no, for sure. It kind of reminds me of like Hope women's basketball, and they were on the run that they were on, where they just like could not lose. It's like the same thing with Ferris. Like, no, I don't want to take anything away from the Griffins. What they're doing is unbelievable right now. But like, this is just, it's like every week you expect to win. I mean, I covered them the last 2 weeks. Like when I go there, I know that I'm going to have most of my highlights in the first half because that's just what they do.
Yeah.
Like week in and week out. And it's freezing. The team that they're playing this week, I think the last 2 games they played were in Florida. They're going to come here and play in 15-degree weather. I can't wait to be on the sideline for that. I'll be there. But yeah, it's definitely like a different element, and Ferris just thrives in it. And every single one of these games that I've covered the last couple of weeks, they've started slow, and then they just turn it on, they don't look back every single time. And it seems to be the same recipe. I mean, this is like one of those things where like I don't ever guarantee wins. If I come in here and we're talking about Ferris State losing, I'd be absolutely stunned. It's just not. It doesn't seem possible that they can. Tony Anise has built an absolute army there. Like they just every year they reload and they get better, and it's so impressive because you talked about Trinidad Chambliss. You lose a guy like that to the SEC and to Division I, and they just bring in these other quarterbacks and they're mobile and they can throw the ball and have. I mean, some of the passes they put out there are great. I mean, Ferris should have won this game by even more. They had a couple touchdowns called back that were like beautiful balls. They're just overall the best team in that conference. It's not even close. One of those things where like space bar. Like it's that kind of thing. Like it's just Ferris State, then everybody else, and that's just what it is right now until proven otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. Team coming from South Carolina up to Michigan, like you said, with the temperature and maybe a little snow, they have no chance, right? Like
Dean is confident in saying that
they're literally they're not used to playing in those type of elements, right? And so Ferris State has the last couple of weeks. So, and regardless, if they're playing in sunshine and 70, if they're playing in sunshine and 70, it's really not going to matter.
I'm sure McKinney they're going to win by 52.
Let's be honest, right? They're just so good on both sides of the ball, and like Andy said, Anise has done a great job with that program, and you see all these top recruits, especially from Grand Rapids, signing and committing to them. So the Ferris State train is not stopping anytime soon.
No, for sure. And the guys he keeps it, like Brady Rose, who was from this area, he's just a heck of a player for them, a gadget guy they use all the time. And it just seems like these guys want to come back and play for him, which is so impressive to do at that level. Obviously, you can't avoid losing people to, money in NIL these days. But it's so impressive to watch. The one team, Grand Valley, that was like kind of near them, they didn't make the playoffs this year and had 3 losses. So it's just like Ferris is really just like far and ahead right now, and I don't know when it's going to stop.
Right. No, well, we're very excited to see how long this is going to go, and of course we're going to be keeping everybody up to date on the rest of the Division II playoffs right now. But let's focus onto the Division I playoffs because we just had the college football playoff rankings decide who will be making the playoffs this year, and of course there's a lot of people who are very upset, but a lot of people who are very happy to see some of their teams in.
I'm not going to get into the whole thing like super deep. But with Notre Dame, that's like the obvious school that we're talking about here that didn't make the playoff, and everybody's really upset about it. And I do understand it. I think that they probably should have been a playoff team over the two teams at the bottom, and that's probably why it'll continue to expand. But what I don't agree with is not accepting the bowl bid. I think it's ridiculous by Marcus Freeman, who I've liked as a head coach. I think he's been great for them to like just go and ask your players about what they want to do. They said a few players aren't going to want to play, so we probably don't want to, and then they don't. Yeah. That is ridiculous to me. I mean, on a football roster, was there 105 guys, something like that? I think around what it is. If 25 guys don't play because maybe some are injured, and then you have a few going to the draft, what about the guys that aren't going to get to play again and aren't going to get to have that chance? They should have still played in that bowl game. That's ridiculous to me. That's a shame on Notre Dame, because people go to that school looking forward to doing it their whole life and then don't get to play in their last game or get a chance to play. Right. So that's where bowl games still should be important to me, and they still should play in them. But maybe I sound like an old man or something right now. But that's just like, to me, it's just I'm looking at it from a player standpoint, how much effort you put into that. So that kind of sucks. But yeah, I mean, JMU, do we need to see Oregon roll JMU? I mean, this is where it's like it's such a tough debate on what's fair and what's not.
Well, I mean, I do agree with the Notre Dame thing, Andy, because like I mean, if I'm a senior and I've been busting my hump all 4 years, maybe I'm not a starter, maybe I am a fringe guy on the team, but I've been on this team for 4 years, and this might be my only chance. I mean, why not put all the seniors out there, all the back, see what you've got going into next year? I don't get that at all, and I get they're trying to make a point,
like, get more everything to go for next year. It doesn't make any sense. I understand they're upset. Like,
I get them trying to make the point of like, you guys kicked us out, so we're gonna take all of our fans away from watching. But
go out there,
college football fans are gonna tune in anyway.
Go out there and destroy whoever in a bowl game. Go show exactly why you should have made it, and show everything. I don't know.
And the swag bags that they get from the bowl,
they're nice.
They're really good.
I've
heard they get lots of cool stuff.
Yeah. I've covered a few bowl games in my day and gotten some pretty cool stuff even in the media. So
like, you get to travel, you get to go someplace you've never been to before.
Yeah, for sure.
Vacation.
Yeah. I don't get it either. I mean, and you see what Clark Lee and Vanderbilt have said. They're like, we lost 2 games. That's why we're not in the playoff. We're going to move on, focus on to the future.
Exactly.
That should be kind of the sentiment, I feel like.
It's like literally
it's sour grapes.
Yeah, this is the same thing for Notre Dame every year. If you really want that security, you join a conference. Like, that's just what it is at the end of the day. I do believe they should have made it. I want to put that clear. But I'm just going to say, like, if you want that security, go win a conference.
Don't lose to Miami. Don't lose to Texas A&M, and you'd be in.
Exactly. The 2 teams that actually mattered in your schedule.
Right. Well, and again, I feel like the committee's hands were tied. How do you not put Texas A&M or Miami in over Notre Dame?
Because they Notre Dame. Soft schedule for Notre Dame.
And honestly, that is the one good on the committee for me, because it feels like in years past, like games that happened earlier didn't matter as much. At least that still held some weight this time, because the head-to-head should matter. So.
Yeah. All right, well, let's look at real quick just the rest of the lineup for this bracket. Of course, like we said, we've got James Madison taking on Oregon, Texas Tech getting a bye as the 4th seed. Alabama and Oklahoma, they're going to have another game against each other. The winner will then take on number 1 Indiana, who had an incredible win over Ohio State. Then Tulane and Ole Miss, they're having another battle. Winner will play Georgia. And then in the final game, we've got the 2 teams that did beat Notre Dame, Miami and Texas A&M, taking on each other. They will play. The winner of that game will play Ohio State. Real quick, guys, obviously there are some favorites in this playoff bracket, and there are some teams that maybe some people aren't sure should have made the playoffs, or at least had questions about. Given everything, seeing how this all lines up, who do you guys have winning the College Football National Championship this year?
Gosh, it's such a tough question. Like, I think I still believe in Ohio State to win it. Unfortunately, and go back to back. I think that they'll correct some of the things that went wrong in that Indiana game, but like, maybe Indiana really is that good. I don't know. I definitely believe that they are a top 3 team in the country. I don't know if that was just like this game just kind of went that way. Maybe Ohio State needs to use some of their NIL money and pay a kicker that can make a kick from however many yards away. Because I mean, that cost them against Michigan last year too. So
same score.
Exactly. So I don't know what's going on with that, but it's hard to look at it and say that it won't be Ohio State. I think that some of these SEC teams that made it, like, what is it, 5? I think some of those are going to get proved maybe a little fraud. But yeah, I mean, like the Tulane Ole Miss matchup, I'm pretty sure they played each other this year, and Ole Miss beat them.
Won by, I think, like 30. I think they won by 30.
That's where we get back into this debate of like why these teams in there, because we don't need to watch that. But yeah, no, I would pick Ohio State.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going with the Cinderella story, James Madison.
Oh, okay.
All right. They're going to upset Oregon on the way to the national championship. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. I am going to go with an Indiana-Ohio State rematch, with Indiana winning once again.
Okay.
What a world we'd be living in.
Yeah.
I mean, I never thought in my life.
I know.
honestly.
Ever.
Indiana national champs.
That'd be
Before
awesome,
before a
honestly. I'm all
basketball
for it.
national championship
Exactly.
too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm all for it. I hope that happens. I
Right.
really do.
Yeah, it would be awesome to see those two teams play again because even though it was kind of low scoring, I did really enjoy that Big Ten championship. So
Yeah, that would be a good rematch.
yeah, definitely. Nobody's picking Georgia. They don't think Georgia could possibly
No.
get back in there.
I don't want any
No,
SEC teams.
no.
Or I mean, not that I don't want Georgia would be my next pick. I would pick them before I'd pick Indiana.
Really?
Just the SEC prowess. I feel like maybe they could get the job done if they got there. But
They've won it
again, this
before.
is probably just me not believing in Indiana because
Yeah.
of their name, and I probably should. So
Right.
Kurt Cinetti's done nothing but like prove that this is a real team, and he's built a real program there. So this, I mean, this is his chance. He goes and wins the national
Right.
championship. We're not joking about Indiana ever
absolutely
again
not.
for whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome time. Super excited about the college football playoffs that are set to get going next weekend. Should be a fun time. Dean and Andy, thank you both so much for stopping by. We'll see you guys again next week for another edition of the Sports Frenzy Podcast.